In this video, we are going to learn how to use the paint bucket tool, how to apply patterns and textures, and how to apply materials you've created and or selected, as well as how to apply materials created in SketchUp. So a couple ways of doing this. We are going to use this dining room vignette that we've previously referenced in other videos. And we are going to start to apply the materials that I brought in and made a list in the previous video. So if for whatever reason your paint bucket or your list is not up, like in your floating palettes over here, you can easily get that back by coming right here to your tool set up here, and you can click paint bucket. And you can always go up to window as well and bring it in by selecting materials, and that will open it too. Now, when this opened up, you can see that it's on a tile list. That was probably the last thing I referenced before I closed out the paint bucket, which is why it's opening back up on that. And so these are actually tiles that can, materials that are actually embedded in SketchUp that come with the program. So they're pretty generic, but they're kind of fun to start out with to get the idea, because it's actually quite easy to create and apply materials. All I'm just doing is a couple little faces right here. But for example, if I take and select this one to actually apply a material, I just click on that face and it will take it and apply it there. Now, mind you, this is something that's really important to note is these faces are not groups and they're not components. They're just individual geometry that I can select a face, an edge, and apply that material. So again, I can select that material and place it on there, and there it is, it appears. Now you might have to change and edit the scale of that. That we'll do soon enough, but it is on there. Now there's a difference though. I'm going to take two faces, whoop, and I am going to extrude them up just a little bit, push pull. One of them I'm going to leave ungrouped, and then the other one I'm going to triple click and say make a group. So what's going to be different about this is if I click on this tile pattern, for example, and I place it on this face or click this object or grouping, you can see that it only applies it to this one face. If I do the same thing over here, it applies it to the whole thing. And the reason is because this one is ungrouped, this one is grouped. So this one, it's reading as, because it's all grouped together, it's like everybody's holding hands. It's once I put the material on it, it wants to put it on every face. If you have geometry that is ungrouped or like a, it is going to only put it on the face that you're actually clicking on. So if I want this whole thing to be done in this pattern, I have to click each individual face. Or if I undo that, I'll show you, you can hold down the shift key and place it. And if I hold down shift, or hang on, my computer, there we go. Don't drag on me. Shift, it'll, oh, don't do that. That's a bad mistake. Look, I like covered everything. We're gonna undo that one. So ignore that. Every once in a while, we who do things and have been using the programs for a long time do crazy stuff. So let's ignore that advice. But just know that to cover every face in this material, I just need to come over and select it. But because this is a group, if I just select and place a material, it's going to cover the whole object. Well, how do I modify this so that it doesn't do that? So if I want to apply a material to something that is grouped or a component, well, then I need to double click to go into edit mode. And you can see I've got my bounding boxes here, and now I'm in edit mode. So if I go back and I click that material, while I'm in edit mode, it will only put it on the faces that I actually go and apply it to that surface. So that's how you can do that. And so when you're working with geometry and you might have walls grouped, you want to make sure you go into edit mode, because otherwise it'll paint every wall purple unless you're trying to just do an accent. So you just have to know that you've got to go into edit mode potentially. The other thing is, If you are trying to apply a material to a component, the benefits of a component is like this chair, for example, in this dining room is what we call a component. So meaning anything I do to this chair, as long as nothing's been modified on these chairs to make them where they're what we call unique or individual, everything it done to this one will automatically apply to this one, and this one. So that's really cool and the benefit. So for example, we want to apply, using our reference image, we can see, excuse me, that based on the same images that or materials that we saved previously, this is supposed to be material number 2. So this is going to be the chair, that pink chair fabric. And then we have that dark wood that's going to be on the legs of these chairs. Okay, great. So now I'm going to take my model and I'm going to start to make those changes. Now, first I have to get to my list so that I created my materials library. So I'm going to drop this down and I'm going to go to materials by FSCJ. And there it is. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, for the most part, however you name that, it's just knowing that that's how you're referencing it because it's keyed to that image. So that's how I'm doing it. Now, this chair, we saw that this is individualized, no, not grouped. This is grouped. Now this is a component. So when I click on this one or double click to edit, because again, if I try to just put the material on here, that is definitely not applying correctly. So we don't want to do that. So I'm going to Control Z to undo that. I'm going to hit the space bar and I'm going to double click and I'm going to start to see what this selects. So right now, if I'm in edit mode, it lets me select this the seat portion of the chair. So I am going to select the fabric from the list and it's highlighted and I can see it. It's down here in my little thumb preview. So I'm going to click here and notice that when I did that, it automatically changed the seat cushions of this one as well, which is perfect. That's the benefit of using a component. Now, there is a little bit of an issue with the way the leg and the fabric are working, and that all depends on how your component is made. Really, we're just using this for reference. We're not building construction documents or buildings off of this. So it's not the end of the world. We're not going to sit here and like fixate on that and go, oh, we have to clean up this edge and make it perfect. It's just not necessary because once we get into those and you see the thing as a whole, it's really not going to stand out. But now I need to change the back. So I'm going to come back over here. And if it doesn't give you the paint bucket symbol, just again, click on the surface beside it and then go back to it. SketchUp's weird like that sometimes. So now I'm just going to click on that one and it automatically changed the front and the back. And I can see, I'm in a wall. Do I need to apply this color anywhere else? No, not that I can see. So now what I want to do is while I'm in edit mode, let's go ahead and apply the legs. So I am going to select the material for the legs. And then I'm going to go back to my space bar. And I'm going to select the materials for all of these legs. And I can just kind of zoom around. Sometimes, like, again, lots and lots of geometry is hidden here. So I am just kind of filling in those gaps a little bit. And as I zoom out, if I go on to out and click outside the group or the component, it closes that edit. And now I can see that we've got the pink of the fabric on the chair and we have the table leg. And so we can start to see that come together. Now, this fabric does not have a pattern repeat like a vertical or a horizontal. That would be important. If we were doing this, we would have to edit that and make it like appear appropriately on this, but this is nice because there's no real pattern. We're just seeing the texture of the material. If the texture weave is reading is like really too big, we can go through and edit that by right-clicking on the material itself and changing, but the width and the height on this one really honestly reads fine. It's not a problem to keep that there. So we're just I'm gonna close that. I'm not gonna make any changes to it, but we're starting to get somewhere. We modified a component and applied materials, and now we're going to work on the next phase. Now, when we're doing casing like this around the window, we want this dark finish. That's what we're going for. But I don't necessarily want to see all the wood planks from this material because watch, if I apply this, first I always check. One thing, when I click on this, we can see that this is grouped together. So again, don't just apply by clicking, because guess what? It applies it to the whole wall. Well, you don't want that. We don't want this to all look like wood texture. So I'm going to Control Z to undo that. Go to my space bar, double click, because again, there's multiple groups in here. So I'm just trying to get to this area. So once I can see that it's giving me just that area, I am going to apply that material. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to get out of it for a second. You can see that it's showing all the planking and stuff like that, which maybe is not necessarily the most appropriate for this area. So what I'm going to do is, what's kind of nice is we know this is our material. What I can do is select this little dropper that's here, and I can come in and hover over that and just get the color that I want. And now I can paint that, and it gives me the coloring of the wood and all that. And again, if it's a little too dark, that one got a little dark, I'm going to go a little lighter. Let me do that, make sure. Okay. I can apply that, and we're still going to be in the same family, but we're not quite as dark, and we're not seeing, we're not seeing all those wood slats and everything on there. And you just have to orbit around and make sure you get all the edges and faces. Sometimes, like if you know you're never going to be seeing the bottom down here, do I have to go paint that? No, that's not a big deal. But we do want to paint anything that we are going to potentially see that relates to that casing. So that's another way you can kind of modify some of your materials where I want the coloring, but I don't necessarily want to see wood slats on my molding. So that is an option. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of organizing of my model real quick, because I need to create a floor, but obviously I can see the floor plan and everything right now, which I don't want. So I'm going to temporarily minimize this. Oh, on the Mac, it doesn't ever want to minimize. So I'm just going to close it out for a second. And I'm going to open up my tags palette. Now, if you don't have your tags palette open, again, you can always get that by going up to Window and selecting tags to turn that on. So tags, if you have it or not familiar, is basically like layers, how we do our drawing organization in Revit and AutoCAD. And we do the same thing here. So we're tagging objects, and to organize them is really kind of the easiest way to think about this. So for example, I have this floor plan. So I'm going to go ahead and create a plus sign. I'm going to click on the add a new tag on that plus sign, and I'm going to say floor plan and press enter. And so now it's active, but it's empty. There's nothing on it. So I need to apply something to it. So the other palette that I need to have expanded is entity info. And again, if your entity info is missing, come up to Window, turn on entity info. And so you can see that the floor plan is selected currently, and it's showing as untagged. So I need to just change that. I need to drop it down, and I need to select floor plan layer. So now if I use my eyeball and I turn off that tag visually, that's the visual, then it's controlling that for me. And that makes life a whole lot easier. So same thing I want to do with other stuff. I want to make another one, and I'm going to call this one furniture. And it makes it easy because now I can select like this chair, and I can see that I'm going to put it on furniture. And I'm going to just keep doing that. I'm going to select all of these chairs and table. And I'm going to drop that on the furniture layer. And let me turn it off, make sure, yep, it's turning off. So now I'm going to add the console to the furniture layer. And so now you can see it turned off because I've got the visual, the eyeball turned off. So now it's all, I haven't erased it, haven't hidden it. I've just turned it off, which makes it so much easier for our layer control. So now if I turn off the floor plan and I turn off the furniture, I can do the same thing with the rug. I need to organize that and apply it somewhere. And it's really important. I like to make sure my rugs are grouped. We need that little bit of thickness that's here. So before I do anything, I'm going to triple click on that and I'm going to say make group. And so again, I could apply the rug to the furniture layer. That would be fine. Or I could make a whole rug layer. It just depends on how complex your model is. But for this one, pretty small. So I'm just going to put it on the furniture layer. So now I need to actually apply a floor because there's no face here. So if we want this to actually look like wood, I've got to put something there. So I've got a little bit of some geometry that's kind of weird right here. I'm going to get rid of that I don't need. Okay, let's see. Whoop. What did you erase? Took away the floor right there. That's okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I know I need this to be wood. So I'm going to come underneath and I am going to make a face and I'm going to add some thickness to it because we need the face to have some thickness. And there we go. So we're not going to get any flashing. And so this is where we would apply the wood flooring. So for that material, we can place that. I'm going to go back to my paint bucket. And I'm going to select the wood floor and I'm going to apply it. And now I can just put it on the front of that little vignette if I want to. I'm going to triple click. Got to be careful. This is grouped, so I'm going to hide this even though it's not applied to the layers. This is not grouped. Let's see. Got to be careful because this is why in your geometry, you want to make sure things are like grouped and everything ahead of time when you're building. So it's a little hard to group this one now because it of course wants to grab the baseboards and it also wants to grab like these other items in here. So we're just going to be mindful of that right now and leave it alone. But we will play and adjust with scale in a few minutes. Right now, we're just applying the materials to the surfaces. And we are going to, let me bring back the walls. Okay, so now we want to apply the feature wall material. So again, if we look, we can see that on our code that we've got number 4, that it's going to go here on this strip of ceiling and on this portion of the feature wall. All right, so what's happening though is we can already see some flashing, and I'm going to apply this because this is a perfect example because students do this all the time where they're like, it's flashing and things are fighting and it's like not wanting to show the material properly. So for example, I am applying this material here to our ceiling surface and our back wall. Now notice it's not flashing on the ceiling, it's only flashing on the wall. And the reason for that is because this has no thickness. So it's in competition with this face here. So it's like, well, which material are you wanting me to show? Do you want me to show this blue of the basic wall, or do you want me to show this marble? So one thing that I want to show you is we can just add this smidge of thickness to this and it'll stop the flashing. But there's a little bit of an issue. When you go to do this, you're not going to be able to pull it out because its offset is limited. And the reason for that is because these 2 diagonal lines. So the minute I take those diagonal lines and I delete them temporarily for a second, oops, sorry, let me get back. I'm just going to zoom extents. I can come over here because this isn't grouped and I can get to that face and I can push pull it just the slightest. I just need it to stop competing with that back wall. And now that flashing goes away. But if this is a feature that we're needing to have, I can easily put those back. If I just hide the light for a second, take my pencil tool and bring that back to that corner, bring that back to that corner, and then edit, unhide, last, and there we go, all fixed. So that flashing has now stopped and that really helps. So we can see that we've got a floor, we've got our feature wall happening. Our sconces are a wee bit off here, but that's an easy fix because if that happens, we know we want it on the center here. They're grouped together, which is wonderful because it makes things easy to move around. I'm just going to double click and edit that. And I am going to select this one and move it. And obviously I need to make sure I find the center point of this little wall area so that everything looks nice and symmetrical, but you get the idea of like, I'm just shifting that over and we're putting that here and here. So now we're going to keep doing this and applying the materials. So if you want to kind of see it as you're going along, you can always turn your tags back on, or I don't need the floor plan, but we're starting to see it come together a little bit. And now we could add material for the area rug. Now I love doing area rugs because it's kind of exciting when you get that area rug in there and you're like, oh, I put a really cool pattern on it, and you start to see the materials come to life. This one is just kind of like a natural material, like a jute or something like that. So we're just going to take it and apply it. Now I could have edited this group, but it doesn't matter because this one we want the whole thing to apply to. And again, in the next video, we'll play with scale and get that where we're not seeing this little bit of tiling and stuff that's happening, but we do have a nice texture. It is not always possible to get rid of all tiling when we're dealing with these, but we want to do our best to just make sure everything feels pretty balanced and not standing out as like super fakey. So that's a goal of ours as we worked through building this. Now, we pulled this out just a little bit to create the feature wall back here. We fixed the ceiling by me redrawing those lines. And then now I need to put and do the wainscot that we see here. So we're going to have just a little bit of a rail, and then we're going to apply that material down below. So not too difficult. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use the guide tape measure. I'm going to guide myself up, make sure I'm on that back line. And I think these are about 4 feet. So I'm going to make it 48 inches. And I'm going to do another one. And I'm just going to make it like 2 inches. And so from there, I'm going to use the rectangle tool. And I'm going to push pull that out, and I'm going to orbit so that it is flush with this feature with the stone. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I am going to make sure I grab it right on that guide. And I'm going to push pull. And there we go. So now let's apply a material to it. So we know, again, we could do we want it to show the wood texture? Do we want to pick up the color that I used here and apply it? And we could do that, and that would work just fine. And let's see. I just used that dropper to do that off my paint bucket, it's called a sampler, which is really cool. And sometimes you get lost in the ceilings and stuff, but if you have your ceiling on a ceiling layer, you can always turn that off, which is nice. But now we want to apply this final material here on this portion of the wall. And so the biggest thing is, if I do that, I am going to it's going to apply all over the wall. And do we want to do that? Honestly, that looks kind of cool. Where it could be seen as a wallpaper if this is what we were doing. I kind of like it. It's not necessarily here, but like in the dining room, that gives a really cool texture where you could have the chair rail split in the difference. But say we want to do it just on the lower half. Okay, so that I'm going to Control Z to undo. If we remember, this wall is grouped. So if I need to do just this little area, just like I did with here, I need to go in and I need to draw a face. Whoop, I'm in the ceiling again. And I need to make that face have just, again, a little bit of thickness because we don't want flashing. I'm going to make it the same as my marble. And I'm going to apply my material. And there we go. And so there's that first one. And now I can basically come over and do the exact same thing right here. So again, I could paint the bottom of that chair rail, but it doesn't matter because that's not an area we're ever really going to see, or the client's going to be like looking at in it while we're rendering and showing them the perspectives. Okay, last material. Whoop. And I'm going to pop that on there. And there we go. And so now we've got that material here. If I wanted to, I could continue that chair rail over here and do the material below. I could decide, do I want it to actually go above? This is where you get to have fun with it and really decide you're designing. Like typically before we get to this point, we actually already know what the design is intended to look like. Obviously, I'm just doing tutorial videos at this point on just showing actually how to use these commands. But that's the fun part, is bringing something you've already envisioned to life. So the last thing I'm going to do in this video is bring in that piece of artwork that we created or that I saved to the JPEG. So the thing is, you want to think about the sizing. Now, this one, I downloaded the image and I saved it and I cropped it. And I want to think about my proportions here on the above the console. So what's kind of nice is I can see that I am going to grab the tape, make sure I'm on the back wall, and I'm going to pull up a guide. Whoop. Pull up a guide and I'm going to figure out where I want the bottom of the painting to stop. That looks pretty good right there. And then from there, I'm going to determine kind of how tall I want this painting to be. Let's see. How much space do we have? We don't want it to be crazy. Let's do like 3/6. And then I'm going to think about the proportions to the console. We don't want it to be bigger than the console. We don't typically want it to be the same size. We normally want a little bit of breathing room thinking about our proportions. And obviously, if we were picking the art, we would potentially already have default sizes that the artist has given us. But now I'm just going to do the same thing. So how far did I go there? 6 inches. Okay. And now I am going to draw a face on the front of this. And I'm going to give it just a little bit of thickness, again, to make it look like a canvas on a wall. And then I like to go ahead and you could group this or you could do it after the fact. This is not grouped. The wall technically should be grouped before I ever put art on it. So do as I say, not as I do in this one. But now it's ready for me to bring in and create that artwork. So what I can do is I'm not going to be using the materials this time because we're bringing in an image. I'm not asking this image to repeat or tile, like where we have a seamless pattern. So that's different. So what we're doing this time is we're going to go File, Import, and we're going to find the image. So mine is here on the desktop. I've got the cropped image. And I'm going to say right here where it says format, it's going to show all supported types. So this is a JPEG, so that's why it's letting me select it. But this is what I want to change. I don't want it to be used as a texture. I want to use it as an image. So when I do that, I'm going to say import, and it's going to be on my cursor. And so I'm going to come down to the bottom of my painting, and I am going to scale it. And for whatever reason, it went that way. Sometimes it does that where you're like, that's not what I wanted. Okay. So what I can do is rotate that. So if I just click on this face and hang on, I got to think about if I want the rotate to go. Hang on, I needed to rotate this way. So I'm going to click on rotate and there we go. For whatever reason, if it does that. So I'm going to go ahead and make a group on that face just so it doesn't stick. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it. Whoop. Do, 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 do. Whoop. Well, where did it go? Okay, let's see. Where did it go? Let's try this again. All right, I'm going to delete it. Let's bring it back in. I've got this face grouped. So file, import, use as image, desktop. We're going to find that image. There we go. That's exactly what I wanted. And so now I'm going to click to that back corner there. For whatever reason, it is sitting just below and not where I want it to be. Bring it just slightly forward. The thing is, though, is I need to scale this. This is too big than my original painting. Okay, let me get these walls out of my way. There we go. All right, so now I can scale this. I'm going to take the scale command and I'm going to grab it and I'm going to scale it to the size of my frame. And so now I'm going to take that image and the canvas itself. I'm going to just grab this whole thing. Don't do that. That was an accident. That's meant to hide, not erase. And that was one of the key things. Edit, unhide, last. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab just that, make a group, and edit, delete guides. And now we have our artwork. And that is nice and proportional to the console. It's complementing the fabrics and materials that are already applied in this model. And it is, if you want, just like we did previously, since I don't know this exact color, I can take the paint bucket tool and come over here and select kind of that sample dropper and sample this and make it blend in. So now it doesn't stand out as like it's got a white frame. It kind of blends into the frame that's intended to be here. And so for this video, this is where I'm going to stop. And we're going to work on scaling materials in the next one.